I really truly want to empower the dentists and what the dentists stand for, give them the ability to be able to maneuver themselves in the industry. And that's one of the things I appreciate about what you guys are doing is feels like you guys are really trying to help the dentists find themselves who they are in the marketplace. And I think sometimes the dentists really get lost along the way and in their journey. How are you guys helping the dentists really kind of find who they are when they're so far into their career? And sometimes they get lost along the way. So when you guys are having that conversation, how are you helping empower those dentists to really take that next step into their career?
Well, we have support. We're helping with bandwidth. We have a lot of great people working at Vision Dental Partners. We have Lex, Mikkel. You've had them all on apparently. I'm maybe the last man standing at Vision Dental Partners to be on this podcast, but very grateful. So we actually get in front of the doctors. We push brand, and we put people in front of them. It's such a hard thing to shoot content, to do podcasts. You guys are doing dentistry all day. In fact, one of the conversations we had just recently is a lot of dentists aren't even on LinkedIn because they're so busy practicing dentistry, and they get home, they're not looking to get on LinkedIn, and during the day they're seeing patients. And so for us to be able to help them build a brand, we don't expect them to do it by themselves. This takes time, just like learning a new patient experience, just like learning to cut a crown. So we put a team in front of people, help shoot some content, make them look good, cut, edit those videos. By the way, shooting, it's not the problem. It's editing the videos. It takes forever. The editing takes forever. I personally have been a part of an editing team where I would create content for a group practice that I had a minority ownership stake in, and I would shoot all of the summits. We would shoot summits. We would shoot, go snow skiing, go mountain bike riding. I would shoot all this content all day long. You have 10 hours of film, and then you're shrinking this down to 7 minutes. Yeah, but we have a team for that. And that's really important. And in a lot of private practices, they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the time, they don't have the people to even professionalize that scope.
Why has that's something that it's become such a fascinating for me. Why do you think the branding has become such a big deal in the current marketplace for anybody, but especially for dentists? Because to be honest, I have had patients come to my office and said, man, I found you on YouTube. I found you on LinkedIn. I Google your name, your stuff comes up. So I realized the power of what the branding and what we do. Why do you think that's such an important thing for dentists to do, to put themselves out there? Why do you think that's so important? All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Dentmet. Masood, I don't know what episode I'll be on. 1757?
I stopped counting episodes ago.
Yeah, you keep going from 100 to 1,000 back to 500. I don't know where. Hey, man, we'll just keep doing it. I don't care about the count. We'll just keep doing it. Hey, at least we're doing something, because today we got the one and only Mr. Craig Allen. Mr. Craig Allen got a very unique story. He is a business development for Vision Dental Partners. Masood, I believe you have had everybody from Vision Dental Partner on our podcast. Now we got to start reaching to
Next
their
time we
office
gotta go for their patients because we have all the staff on.
Hey, Mr. Craig, welcome. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you joining us today. Man, you've been doing an amazing job on LinkedIn. I've been following your story. It's super powerful. I'm amazed by what you're doing and how you're helping Dr. Brad kind of accomplish and achieve his dreams. I appreciate that so much about you. I'm going to let you introduce yourself to our audience and we'll get into it, man. Let's go.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, and watching all of the people that you've had on. I'm blessed. I'm like, what am I doing here? But I feel like I have a story to tell. I think that's most people. And I've been very active on LinkedIn. But, for me, joining Vision Dental Partners, I've been in M&A. That's what I do now, is helping practice transactions and acquisitions, partnering, building relationships, and education. You and I both really connected on that, Doc. We are trying to educate this community about really the M&A space, right? So my history has been in dentistry. This is my 29th year in dentistry. I know HR doesn't let you ask, but I'm 45. I have a 26-year-old daughter, and she's a nurse living her best life in Nashville. I've been involved in the practice from dental assisting to office leader to treatment planning and sales, operations, regional, you name it, recruiting. I've done it all. everything beyond, picking up a drill and cleaning teeth. And so really here I am. My superpower has truly been building relationships, and I'm loving the M&A space. Like those are my things. Let's build some relationships, build some partnerships, and do it in a way that's dentist friendly, which I know you love.
Absolutely. That has been one of the biggest topic. And the reason why I think I talk about this all the time, it's that my mission for at least what I'm doing with Dentment and what we do with Masood and everything else is that I really truly want to empower the dentists and what the dentists stand for, give them the ability to be able to maneuver themselves in the industry. And that's one of the things I appreciate about what you guys are doing is feels like you guys are really trying to help the dentists find themselves who they are in the marketplace. And I think sometimes the dentists really get lost along the way and in their journey. How are you guys helping the dentists really kind of find who they are when they're so far into their career? And sometimes they get lost along the way. So when you guys are having that conversation, how are you helping empower those dentists to really take that next step into their career?
Well, we have support. We're helping with bandwidth. We have a lot of great people working at Vision Dental Partners. We have Lex, Mikhail. You've had them all on apparently. I'm maybe the last man standing at Vision Dental Partners to be on this podcast, but very grateful. So we actually get in front of the doctors. We push brand, and we put people in front of them. It's such a hard thing to shoot content, to do podcasts. You guys are doing dentistry all day. In fact, one of the conversations we had just recently is a lot of dentists aren't even on LinkedIn because they're so busy practicing dentistry, and they get home, they're not looking to get on LinkedIn, and during the day they're seeing patients. And so for us to be able to help them build a brand, we don't expect them to do it by themselves. This takes time, just like learning a new patient experience, just like learning to cut a crown. So we put a team in front of people, help shoot some content, make them look good, cut, edit those videos. By the way, shooting, it's not the problem. It's editing the videos. It takes forever. The editing takes forever. I personally have been a part of an editing team where I would create content for a group practice that I had a minority ownership stake in, and I would shoot all of the summits. We would shoot summits. We would shoot, go snow skiing, go mountain bike riding. I would shoot all this content all day long. You have 10 hours of film, and then you're shrinking this down to 7 minutes. Yeah, but we have a team for that. And that's really important. And in a lot of private practices, they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the time, they don't have the people to even professionalize that scope.
Why has that's something that it's become such a fascinating for me. Why do you think the branding has become such a big deal in the current marketplace for anybody, but especially for dentists? Because to be honest, I have had patients come to my office and said, man, I found you on YouTube. I found you on LinkedIn. I Google your name, your stuff comes up. So I realized the power of what the branding and what we do. Why do you think that's such an important thing for dentists to do, to put themselves out there? Why do you think that's so important?
Well, like Brad would say, when people think of the best brands, they go there first, right? And, I can think of a lot of great companies out there that have created some amazing brands, and they can piggyback off of that with new patient, recruiting, all the things that get the eyes on their particular business. It's such a huge, huge advantage because no one's doing it, right? I think 20 years ago when dentists were saying, if you market your company, you're a sellout, if you have to market to patients, then you must be a bad dentist. Why would you ever market to patients? And then people started marketing, and it was like new patients started coming in because they're like, hey, I need to tell people that I am here and I'm a great dentist. This is a great place to be. I have an amazing opportunity for employees. And people were just coming in. And then, of course, you saw marketing take over, right? It's like, we were doing radio, TV, newspaper. Remember when we were doing newspaper? That was a while back, but we were doing newspaper. And I know mailers still exist. I'm not quite sure how, but they do. They still exist. And so the marketing landscape has changed. And now it's, what are you going to do differently beyond marketing? And so now it's this online branding. I mean, Gary Vee talks about it quite a bit. Brad's a big fan of Gary Vee. When you look at online gig economy, people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars just on brand content, shooting videos from home and saying, hey, here's a brand, look at it. Here's a brand, look at it. So really, this is the future is video content. It's branding content. People don't know that you're a great dentist or you're a great place to be unless you can put it out there. And we've got to get it to the masses. And so hey, listen, I had my prayer right before I jumped on this podcast and said, please, Lord, let this information get to the people that it needs to hear. And so I'm very spiritual like that. I want to make sure that we're reaching the right people, the right relationships, and that we're making an impact. And so it's just important because it's what's happening now, right? We can't continue to do what we were doing 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. It's advancing. It's too quick. It's too fast.
So that's amazing, Craig. One question I had, you mentioned it's your first podcast. How are you doing so greatly? Because my first podcast, like I was just so frightened, man. Like I didn't know what I was talking about. You're just an asset.
Yeah, it helps. It helps having 29 years in the business and talking about this constantly over and over and over and knowing the experience that I have separates a lot of what Brad attracts. So let's take that for example. Brad had a content and a brand that he was creating online, and it immediately drew me to say, whoa, what's Brad doing? I want to see what Brad's doing. And so I reach out to him on LinkedIn and I'm talking to him. And so, that's where he's driving professionals that have experience that are coming into his fold to build his business. And so, yeah, I mean, you're gonna fly with eagles. Like if you want to fly with eagles, you got to go where eagles are, right? Like that was the whole thing. But I will tell you, I'm famous in a small town. If you ever get to Dallas Fort Worth and you're up around 4 o'clock in the morning looking for dentures, I have shot some commercials in the past. And so you'll see me on TV. Maybe it's my experience from shooting television marketing ads.
And one more question. How have you been 29 years in the dental industry and you've never been on a dental podcast? Because there are dental podcasts like in all the corners of dentistry. Like anywhere you go, you just pull up a rock, there's a dental podcast below it.
Yeah, Masood. He
There's
was waiting to get on the best one. That's why.
That's
the
the
best
answer I
one.
was looking to hear from him, Doctor. What did you say?
First one, best one. Let's go, boys. No, listen, let me tell you the dark side of dentistry here. We're going to slay some dragons in this podcast because I'm very authentic. I speak on the industry. I'm very selective with the people that I work with, but if people don't like what I put out or like, I'm sorry, bye. What do you want me to? So I will tell you, I was stifled in a lot of roles previously. And you know this because when you're with a company, you're representing a company, you have to be very PC. You have to be able to be likable, and you can't piss off big box. You can't piss off private practitioners. You want to make sure you get everybody. It's listen, tech companies are doing it. They're like, hey, listen, we'd love to talk about the things that are burning in the industry, but we can't because we've got these covenants and these people we don't want to burn. We don't, we want to protect everybody. And by the way, what's the truth, right? The truth is whatever two lawyers fight it out in court and say it is, but what's the real truth? Only between that person and you and God knows. But I will tell you, just being stifled from saying, hey, listen, you're representing our company and we can't have you saying certain things. We can't have you having certain social media, Instagram, TikTok. So there was some stifling over the years to say, hey, listen, maybe we need to be more professional. We can't really offend people out there. And so now that I'm more of a freelance and I have a CEO partner in Brad that says, dude, I love everything you say. Go tell it to the world. That feels good. So that's partially the reason. But you guys are very aware that this is going on today.
Absolutely, man. That's why I always tell Masood when I bring people on the podcast, I truly want them to talk about their experience because your real experience is what's going to teach somebody else about what's truly happening in the industry. That's why I'm so open to. That's why I'm so open about my talks about the DSOs, the DSO market, what the DSOs are doing for the patient care, how is negatively affecting the patient. Because I want those younger doctors to understand if you truly want to do a dentistry that is going to mean something, you got to go to a place that they put the patient on top of their chart. And if they are not, then you have to step back and analyze what you're doing as a dentist. And that's why I love people that are authentic about their experiences because that's where we learn from one another and about what we do. But Craig, the one thing I want to ask you is, you've been through 29 years of dentistry. You've been through a lot. Your journey, I'm sure, had a lot of ups and downs. But through that journey, what has inspired you to kind of get to this moment for you to tell yourself, I want to take on the role with Dr. Brad and I want to do what he's doing? What was the inspiration behind that decision?
Yeah, this is a pretty personal and, I would say painful journey to say, how did we get here? Where am I at today? And I would say it had everything to do with probably my wife and God. So, that and being in a situation where it forced you to become a freelance, an entrepreneur, a person of business that can get out independently from the shackles of corporate America and all of the stifling. So, just recently I was moving back to Dallas, Fort Worth, and in between career and thinking like, what am I going to do? What are we going to invest in? And we traveled some, my wife and I, and finally I said, listen, by January 1, I want to be productive. I want to have some contracts. I want to be doing something, either working for someone or myself. And when that time came, my wife was like, look, you've just got to start your own thing and just get out there. You've got some experience. And so, I started as a freelance and it was really just, a lot of prayer, talking to my wife and then saying, all right, let's do this. And by Jan 1, we had an opportunity. And one of these local companies in DFW that runs a small group gave me that opportunity. We're helping with their operations. And then later on, all of these things start trickling down where you start finding more and more opportunities. I'll tell you a really interesting story if you want. This is, more of a religious story, is that a weird thing happened where it was like, I've always been involved in the church. I went to a private Christian college, graduated, all those things, grew up in the church. Of course, you're in the Bible Belt, South, Texas, South America kind of thing, right? And so one of the things that we started doing, and I've never done, is fully tithing, fully tithing. And I was like, you know what? Here we are. We're at a moment where we're just thinking, okay, what are we going to do with our finances? How are we going to move forward? And the minute I started fully tithing, literally January 1 got my first contract, February got my second, February got my third, like March got my fourth, 5, 6, meet Brad, join Vision. I mean, everything just started to roll up. And as you start to become more opportunistic and financially, you start to continue to drive the tithing up and up and up. And it just continued to bless you. So that was either that's a hell of a coincidence or it was like, hey, we're on the right path.
No, man, I love that. I think that, when you put certain goals and dreams into place, God awkwardly and weirdly opens certain doors, and you'll be surprised sometimes how those door opens up. So, hey, man, good on you. The fact that you're doing it and you're doing it the right way. I'm happy for you. As far as Vision Dental Partners, I know that, I'm very good friend with Mikhail. We text, we talk and everything else. As far as Vision Dental Partner, what is one thing that you're trying to accomplish within that organization that you're going to say, okay, like I checked the box, I accomplished something, I did something to grow this business to the next stage? What is that one thing that you want to do for yourself?
Man, this is such a deep question. I love this question because I am literally trying to revolutionize how Vision Dental Partner actually brings on and acquires or merges. So, one of the goals that we have is, by the way, we have a very realistic goal. We're a company that's not looking to grow 20 locations a year, right? 30 locations a year, 60 a month, right? We've got these huge operators out there that are just like speeding through things and just putting out money and buying things. And when you buy them the wrong way, you can see what happens to the market. You can see what happens to PE. You can see the return on investment. You see all those things. But, they have to satisfy that number, that metric or whatever it is. And so for us, we have a very realistic goal of growing 4 locations a year. 4 locations a year, that's the goal. So if that was on my task list to say, hey, if I can get 4 practices a year for Vision Dental Partners and continue to grow in a very healthy way that we actually get to retain ownership and have autonomy, that would be fantastic. Now, can we revolutionize? This is the question, Dr. Owji. This is the question. PE does this every single day. All right. Now, I've talked to some other doctors about mindset. PE will buy a 3-pack, a 5-pack, a 10-pack, right? 20 offices. They'll buy these groups, they'll integrate them, right? Onboard them, put in some structure and some systems, put them in a flu state for a little while, but then hold on to them for X amount of time. Why are we not doing that in the DPO space? You know, this is what I want to revolutionize. When I think about Vision Dental Partners and I think about my age a little bit, I think, man, how can we accelerate value in our business, cash flow in our business? How can we speed time up? Because time is the most precious commodity that we have right now. It's not money. It's time, I know people that are tied into 5 and 7 year deals. Now it's in clawbacks and all these things. And you're just like, man, that's a wild space to be in. And so, for us, if we can retain it in the DPO level, not have private equity shareholders breathing down our neck and saying, hey, you have to do this, you have to do that. I believe what I'm trying to do with Vision Dental Partners, and I'm sorry, Brad, I apologize to you. I'm looking at going big or going home. So I want to be able to partner with groups, with small packs, mid-size, and grow this thing so that it improves that particular side of the table, our particular side of the table. We keep the cash flow. And listen, at some point, and I know that Eric Roman talked about a little bit about purchasing and PE and how it works, but eventually you get to a size where you get boxed out. You box out private buyers. And that's the unfortunate part and truth about getting too big. You're going to box yourself out. There's not any private practices out there to be able to buy you. So eventually you either have to sell to PE or you have to find a DPO that can buy you. And I don't know a ton of really, really big DPOs, but I will shout out to Dr. Benj Bowman at Enhanced Dental out of Oklahoma. He's got a pretty large privately held DPO that he is running beautifully in a way that he gets to keep the controls, have the autonomy, bring partners on. And I would love to see more of that in our industry. I would love to see bigger DPOs where we've got cash flow, we have cash reserves, we can go buy 3 packs, 5 packs and merge and keep the cash flow in house. And maybe 10, 15 years, we figure out what we want to do with it.
That's amazing. I love the fact that you said DPO and not DSO, because if you would have said that, I would have probably disconnected this.
DSOs are the boo-boo name.
That's the boogeyman.
That's right.
But no, I always talk about this. I can relate to this so much because I worked for a few companies before my time, before I started at the office that I'm in now, that they were DSOs. And the biggest problem with the DSOs are that that's what exactly they do. They buy these practices in a pack, right? They get to 80, 90 practices, and then they get to a place where they hit the wall because their cash reserves keep draining and draining because they cannot manage them. And then Dr. Roman mentioned that too. Their hope is that to stay in this for 3 to 5 years and they cash out and they walk away from it. They make something and walk away. Why? That's always such a fascinating thing to me because I don't see that a lot happening in other fields like medical or like even anything else in the medical field or whatever it is. But in dental, like, it has become such a big thing. Why do you think is people, like especially these private equities, are so focused around dentistry? Is it the money? Is it the name? Is it the career? What is it that they're so focused on this particular area of medicine?
This is not my specialty, but I will tell you, PE is in everything. PE's in chiropractic, they're in veterinarian. I mean, they're buying up HVAC companies, AC heating and air companies, right? They've already bought up all the hospitals. They've already bought up all the pharmacies. This is such a wild thing to me. And I really, truly, I want to revolutionize this. And I want to change the mindset of some of these groups that are like, well, I'm at the end of my rope. Like I'm either over leveraged, I can't grow anymore. I either have to partner with a PE or I have to sell one of the two. It's like, man, no, partner with us. Like, let's figure out a way to partner together and forget the PE, forget all that stuff. Like, let's figure out how to, because the most beautiful thing about two groups joining is A and B doesn't equal C, right? Like A and B equals D. If you took a $15 million company and a $15 million company, brought them together, it doesn't equal 30 million. The valuation goes up in a multiplier and ends up being like 60 million. So now you got a valuation of $60 million, not two companies that joined at 30, 15 and 15. So, that's the power of the multiplier. And that's what PE is doing. And believe me, they are taking over. It's scary. I talked to one of my NFL friends the other day, I crossed it with, and we're going to turn into the NFL. We're going to turn into the NFL. You're going to be working a job, and the rest of the dentists in the world are going to be working a job and asking to be on the team. Meanwhile, you have no control over salaries and, how the game's played and how it's protected and how insurance works. And, are they going to take care of you after your concussions? Like all these things. You guys are going to be NFL players when this is all said and done because you're not going to have control of the entities. I mean, listen, you're starting to see bigger sports players buy into programs and teams. They know what's coming. And this is no different from veterinarian and pharmacy, all those things. These people are just looking to find a job. And if they want to start their own, the cost of capital and starting a business right now is insane. And the cost of the debt to go to school is insane. So they're boxing us out, brother. They're boxing us out. We are having to work for them, and they will have all the control eventually if we don't take over the DPO space.
So, Craig, that's amazing. Now that you mentioned PEs, I'm really the kind of guy that try to ask the wild questions. Like, if you woke up tomorrow and you were a PE yourself, like you had, I don't know, like $10 billion in your account, what would you do to dental industry?
Oh my gosh. PE, $10 billion. You know, I wouldn't even know how to play that game because a lot of these people don't even, you're talking about billionaire playboys and girls. You're talking about millionaire, like multi-millionaire. Like, where do they put their money? They don't, if you put it in the stock market, right? Like 6% return. If you put it in the banks, even lower than that. So they know that small business in America, like small business drives like America, right? I mean, we can grow small business annually, sometimes
No,
35,
Craig,
40.
sorry to cut you off. Only you can invest it in dental industry. What would you do?
My gosh. I don't know that they even manage their own. Like for me, okay. Let me think about this question. If I had $10 billion, what would I do with the space?
Are you just gonna start your own DSO, or are you gonna, I don't know, start something to help like more dentists on the private part, like having private practices? Which route are you gonna go?
You know what? I'm glad you cut me off. I'm glad you gave me a little time to think about this. You know what I would do? I would take over the dental schools. I would go buy up all the dental schools and I would set a real curriculum for business-minded dentists with soft skills, not just clinical skills. I would buy up the dental. That's what I would do. I would start with the foundation because listen, it works in church, it works at Disneyland. Let's start with the kids.
You're
I
talking
would
Milad's language, man. You're talking Milad's language. It's literally what we were talking about like 3 days back. Me and Milad were on a phone call and we were just discussing, about the future, next 5 years, 10 years, once we get our private jets and stuff. And Milad was like, "Do you know what my dream really is, Masood?" I was like, "What is it?" And he was like, "Yeah, I want to have my own dental school." And I was like, "Really?"
bingo. Bingo. Yeah, you control the narrative at that point, right? And you can help these doctors. This is what's crazy. I've actually pitched, which I know it's tough to, they probably have people pitching them all day long, but I'm like, listen, can we come into the dental the dental school and talk about business, give some type of business curriculum, conversation? We don't necessarily have to pitch our product and but sure. Like, let us come in and at least give some advice on the future of dentistry and give them options on, hey, this is what you're going to see in this particular market, this particular market. And they're like, yeah, we're not interested. And you go, really? Wow. Because when dentists get out, that's all they ask for. They're like, I wish I knew more about business.
Well, Craig, let me tell you this. When I start talking to Masood about building Dentment, brother, we're starting from pre-dentalist student to dentalist student to dentist because I want to work on the foundation of what's going on, just like the kids that you mentioned. So once everything is live, you're more than welcome to come in and talk to as many students as you want because guess what? We added all 65 universities on our platform. So you're going to find all the students on there. So,
Man,
yep.
that's amazing. Well, I'm glad we're all thinking in the same vein, and thank you for realigning because that took me a minute to think about that. Like, what would I do? Yeah, I'd start with the school.
Yeah,
Doctor,
because the
can we also, one more thing I was gonna say, like we have pre-dentals, dental students, and like dentists. Can we also add one place for like DSOs to teach them how to run their business? I think majority of them,
teach the DSOs how to run their
I
business
think DSOs
effectively.
need more business education than the dentists themselves. But
Well,
anyway,
hey, I don't blame you on that one because I worked for a couple of them, and guess what? I run out of there faster than I got in. So
It's amazing to find out when you actually meet some of these large groups. Again, we're not going to name names, but you meet some of these large groups and you figure out, man, they don't have it figured out either. You're like, this one doesn't have a CRM. This one doesn't have onboarding and integration. This one doesn't have metrics it's like, and this one has fractured PMS systems. They've got like 8 PMS systems that they're working on. All these companies are still doing okay. They're doing well, for being so dysfunctional. That's what's crazy. That's amazing.
well, yes, indeed it is, and I can tell you that I worked for some of them, and man, when I tell you, like, no, they were non-functional, not even somewhat functional, but they still got through the day to day. I can tell you that. But Craig, it's so amazing that because I always talk to Masood about this, is that the one thing that I love about my experience as somebody that thought about building Dentment is that I always tell Masood is like, I've been through the process. I know what the other side of this looks like. I was a pre-dental student. I was a dental student. It's such a fascinating thing to me that these dental schools are shutting even the idea of you guys going in and just helping those dental students understand the business side of it. It is such a mind-blowing thing that I just don't understand what the agenda behind it is, that they're stopping that on the track when you guys are even offering to go in and helping these dental students understand the business. Well, the question is, why do you think the dental schools are doing that? Is that like some sort of concept behind it, or why do you think they're doing that?
Here's my guess, and I'll tell you, they're not stopping people from coming in and talking about business. They're stopping the small people from coming in and talking about business. Who gets in the schools? Who gets in the schools? Now I can name some players right now, you know, but they're all large 500, 700,000 location groups. They get into the schools pretty easy. They're not letting the small groups in. They're not letting the small, so they know somebody's bread's getting butter. Let me tell you that. Somebody's back's getting scratched. Somebody's sponsoring, scanners, iOSs, right? Somebody's sponsoring iOSs. Somebody's sponsoring technology in the schools. And guess what? They get to be there.
Man, it's amazing that, they're talking about it. When I was my fourth year of dental school and I was ready to graduate, all you could see was those 1,000+ locations, man. There was no Vision Dental partner in there. There was no Aria Dental in there.
No way, man.
Yep.
No way.
I guess we know where the money goes.
We don't have deep enough pockets to get in the schools, or influence for sure.
Well, like I said, man, we've seen it all in the marketplace. That's why, like I said, again, we talk about this all the time. That's why I want to kind of level the playing field with building Dentment, because I wanted to give this smaller company access to these dental students that are in dental school so they can see their option, because I didn't see those options. I didn't know coming out of dental school that visual dental partner of the world existed. I didn't know this smaller DPOs existed. Like I said, this type of conversation opens up the door for those dental students. And that's one of the main reasons I started this podcast, is because I want the dental students to know that there are other options and other avenues that you can go down, that you're going to be more successful than you can ever imagine by you going down the regular route that everybody goes to work for the DSOs. Because the DSOs, they're too corporate and you don't have freedom to do a lot of things you want to do. I can tell you that right now. I work for a big DSO. You can only use certain material. You can only do certain things. You're not allowed to do a lot of changes that you want, but that doesn't align with what you want to do. But then when you go to somebody like Vision Dental Partners or Dr. Melissa Smith at Integrity Dental, and these companies, they try to adjust themselves around the doctor and help the doctor grow. So, man, I wish I had this information that I have now 2 years ago, 3 years ago when I graduated, because I would have made better decisions, right? And that's why we're having these conversations. So the one thing I want to ask you is, when it comes to dental students and the new grads, what is kind of like the vision is there for Dr. Brad or for you guys at Vision Dental Partner? How do you guys help those younger doctors kind of evolve as they come out? How do you guys help them kind of put them in a path to success? What have you been seeing there in that area?
Mikhail could answer this much better, but from what I've heard personally with Brad's mentorship, like, this is such a wild piece of what Brad does, is working on mindset and Mikhail working on operations, right? So Mikhail's, working with the doctors. We have Brad as our chief clinical officer. We marry those two and say, hey, look, you've got to get good at doing fillings before you move on to like crowns. And let me see you do some really good fillings, and let's start there. And then let's move and upgrade to the next armamentarium. And so it's crowns or then root canals, but get good. Don't start talking about doing all on fours if you still can't prep a decent bridge or veneers, right? So I will say that with group dentistry, whether it's DSO, PE, doesn't really matter, but with group dentistry, what it has really helped is professionalize the structure and the systems that kids are getting out of school and getting into these systems, because you have certain groups where you walk in and Maybe a doctor director is doing all of your diagnosis, which kind of sucks, but they're doing all your diagnosis and then basically feeding you the stuff and saying, hey, you're going to do all the fillings. I'm going to do all the crown work, this, that, or the other. So there's a system so that these doctors can onboard, a ramp that maybe is slower, faster. I don't know. Depends on what they're looking for. Most dentists that I see coming out of school may be producing $1,800, $2,500 a day. How can we escalate them to get to 5 or 65 or 75? And so, that's when I see Brad and Mikhail working together on that, it's really focusing on don't try to move so fast forward that you're not efficient and creating quality in the initial stuff, the basic stuff. Now, when you talk about mindset, I told Brad personally, I said, listen, mindset's one of the hardest things to change. And Dr. Eric Roman and everybody out there is trying to do it, right? Like we've got these doctors and shout out to Aereo Dental, like mindset, changing doctors' mindset it'll happen in two ways. One, you got to have like a revelation from God. Like something has to hit you in the head and you're like, okay, like I get it. Thank you for like this event was so traumatic to me, or something hit me so deeply in my soul that I am just going to change what I do and how I move forward. Okay. And the second way is education. Those are the two, in my opinion, those are the only two ways that you're going to be able to change someone's mindset. And they have to be participative in that process. Right. So that's why it's the hardest thing for dentists to do is these chief clinical officers going around talking to doctors about how to change mindset and all these things. It's available, it's there, but it's going to happen in those two ways.
Wow. The mindset is such an important thing. I agree with that one because a lot of time when you come from out of dental school, your mindset is set to certain ways because your mind is programmed to work certain ways. And I think that's one of the challenges when you graduate is how do you change that mindset? How do you keep up with the day-to-day operation of dentistry? How do you keep up with being good at doing certain procedures and being effective at them and being efficient at them? That's absolutely a challenge on its own. So the question I have is that you mentioned something about mentorship, and I think Dr. Brad probably going to tell you this as well. I challenged them on LinkedIn, and that's how me and him got to the talking going because I challenged them about because when I came out of dental school, the one thing that I saw that was happening in the industry was a lot of these companies talked about mentorship. And I didn't believe in that model because I wasn't getting that mentorship from these bigger companies. I was like, I don't see how me getting on a call with your clinical director once a month. I don't know how that's a mentorship. I don't know how you're sending me a text once a blue moon. How is that a mentorship? So, and me and him got into it about that, about what they were doing and how they were kind of programming it. And just seeing his content, I kind of understand what he was talking about. So what do you see? What is the pattern that you're seeing from Mikhail and Dr. Brad Hughes as far as that truly give that mentorship to those doctors or to those staff? Is that on one-on-one basis? What has been the experience from the mentorship side of it that is differentiating what Dr. Hughes is doing than everybody else? Because I don't believe that other companies, and I can tell you because I've been there, these bigger DSOs are truly not keeping up with that mentorship that they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, imitation, right, is the greatest form of flattery. So when you have a CEO and dentist who is talking about mindset, brand, doing all these things, and you actually see him doing it or see her doing it, that's the pinnacle. Like that's the starting point, right? That's what's so influential. What can I tell you that a John C. Maxwell book can't tell you, right? But I can tell you the leader is the lid, you know? And Brad's leadership is so high that it's like his lid is infinite. And so when he talks about influence, getting in front of doctors, he can speak because he does it himself. He comes from a place of saying, hey, I still practice in the chair 4 days a week, and I know some doctors don't do that and they go around and they still help influence. But, you know, there's a lot to be said whenever you're still producing the numbers, practicing dentistry and saying, hey, I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. And so that's big. I see these mentorship programs, like you said, they're kind of a flash in the pan. They're a text. How you doing? But yeah, are you getting into the charts? Are you doing chart audits? Are you sitting with them talking about soft skills? And are you there during the day-to-day shoulder to shoulder work where you're listening to this doctor and you come back and you huddle and you go, hey, listen, there wasn't a sense of urgency. You told the patient they could possibly wait. So it's like you're telling this patient, yeah, you can probably wait on it. And then you're expecting your treatment plan person to come and convert that. They're going to go in there and the patient's going to say, the doctor told me I could wait. I'm not doing this today. So having Brad go in physically to practices, spend the shoulder to shoulder time is a big difference on how Vision Dental Partners is treating our mentorship programs. But it starts with how he acts. Now, listen, he's like, dude, we wear suits. Now, I like that. Now, occasionally I catch him in a hat or a t-shirt, but he's like, hey, we dress up. You see me, I'm dressed now. He says, we present. When we're out in the world, we present. If you have somebody that dresses like, a skater kid, boss or CEO, it's like, who's setting the standard here? Right. So I do commend Brad for setting the tone. That's number one. And if you don't set the tone, you set the wrong expectation and the wrong culture starts to bleed in. So that's the difference that I'm seeing with Brad and Vision Dental Partners.
And I love that. I really do. I think it's such a unique thing. It's such an important thing. I have always asked these questions, and I'm going to ask this question from you because the one thing that I hate about this dental industry is that I hate the fact that you said something that triggered me once again. This $1 million question is coming back, Masood. Sit tight, it's coming. I always said this time after time after time. I said this bigger organization, you know who you are. You know who you are. You gotta stop letting these business people sit in the chair of the CEO when they're not a dentist because they cannot relate to the doctors. I said this time after time after time. You're not, you mentioned that you just said it. If you're not shoulder to shoulder with me and you're sitting on top of the chain, I'm not going to respect you. That's just the bottom line to it. If you don't know what that patient experience is like and you're trying to give me a feedback on that patient experience, I'm going to look at you and say, what are you talking about? Like, you don't know what that feels like. You don't know what you don't know. Your expertise running a business, your expertise is not clinical. So I have no respect for any company that their CEOs are essentially not a dentist. I don't care if they're the best business people on the planet Earth. You can't relate to me. You cannot relate to anything that I'm doing. That's just me. That's just where I might stand. If they want to hate me, don't give a damn. This is
Yeah.
what it is.
No, listen, that's good. Yeah, be true to yourself. I think that there is some humility somewhere in there where, listen, I'm not a clinician. I can't tell you how to be a better clinician, but I'm a pretty damn good communicator and relationship builder. So I
Absolutely.
might be able to help you become a better relationship builder,
Absolutely.
communicator,
Yep.
but it's never going to be the clinical conversation. So there's some humility in there to have, but I don't disagree with you from a standpoint of saying, listen, and by the way, most CEOs are not even the original CEOs of their companies, right? Like they've all left and now you get your second or third CEO, probably somebody from some college, Ivy League school, maybe not. But yeah, it's like, yeah, how are we going to relate if, you're coming from med and, vet and you're coming into dental and you're trying to tell us how to, move the culture and
Yeah.
all the things. And so I don't disagree with you, but yeah, I think there's some humility to have, but I think you should be authentic to yourself. And I think that a lot of doctors out there, by the way, that's why we have such a large market of DPOs. You've got some DPOs that, maybe they are owned by somebody who's not a dentist, and some of them are partially owned by a dentist and a business partner, and then some of them are completely owned by dentists. And so, well, I guess I don't know if there's a DPO that is CEO driven, but no, listen, there's a market for everybody, right? I want the market to win where the dentist wins, period. That's it. That's the simple math.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of what I always said. Like, that's what I want. I want the dentist to win at the end of the day. I want the dentist to have the power to kind of say, hey, like, I'm making the decisions, I'm in the driver's seat, and I'm benefiting from whatever that's going on at the end of the day. And that's really what I'm pushing for. And that's kind of like my life mission is trying to figure out the ways that we can help these dentists kind of saying, hey, man, like take a control of the industry, figure out the ways, get good at business, understand how to run the numbers, understand your P&L, understand your operation,
Yes, sir.
find the people, connect with the right people, like you mentioned, reach out to the people that you need to reach out to. If you don't know something, reach out to the people. If you don't know your technology side of thing, reach out to Masood to figure out what he's doing, or reach out to Craig to figure out about the communication side of things. And I think a lot of the dentists that are older, they're stuck in this mindset of I'm doing it and it's working, but they don't understand the growth mindset of, hey, if I bring these people, they're gonna help me grow. And I think that's what you guys do in our Vision Dental Partners. You're stepping in and really helping show the dentist what's the other side looks like. And I think that's a fascinating part of what you guys are doing.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
I
Thank
love
you.
that. I love that. Yeah.
Dr. Milad, I had actually a question. I think this is the first time I'm asking a question from Dr. Milad on our podcast. Not from the
Put him in the hot.
Yeah. I was gonna ask, like, in terms of the dentists being the businessmen of, you know, their office, do you think necessarily, because you said you have no respect for anyone who's not a dentist and is trying to run the business, do you think necessarily it has to be a dentist to be able to successfully run that office, or do you think there's also a better way? Because the way that I'm looking at it, like, I don't disagree with you. Like, I totally think the dentists own the dental industry and they should own the business too. But at the same time, like, what I'm gonna tell you, like, is gonna make sense to you. Like, I'm a developer and I do developments and I also handle teams. And I also, after a while, like, after I built the product that I wanted to, then I got into the business side of it, right? But then, like, the developers that work with me, like, I don't expect them to do any kind of business, and they don't want to do any kind of business. Like, they're just developers. So if we want to compare it to the clinical, like in the dental context, it would be kind of like, they know they have the clinical knowledge and they take care of the patients, which is the product that we're building, the software. And there's someone else that knows the business better and they take care of that. Does that make you understand what I'm trying to say, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's why, people like Dr. Hughes exist, like the other doctors that we had on that are CEO of the company. What I'm saying is that the dentist, when you have a dentist that is sitting in a CEO chair that understands the business side of things and understand the clinical side of things, as a dentist, you can relate to that CEO a lot more than when there is a CEO that doesn't understand the clinical side and has a business. Because when you work in an industry that you're a dentist and you're a CEO, you can understand if you say, I'm trying to make this clinical decision that is going to be good for business, that doctor that is a CEO going to understand it. But if you say, I am going to make this clinical decision that is going to help the business, that person that has that business mindset may not understand that. They may not understand, well, I don't care about this because it doesn't help as far as the business side of things doesn't make sense to me, but from the clinical perspective, it makes sense and it improves the patient quality. And sometimes that's the miscommunication between someone that is a dentist and someone that is a non-dentist. There's going to be a huge gap. And that's why I think like Dr. Hughes probably has a better sense of understanding. Like Craig mentioned, he's working chair 4 days a week. So he understands the patient experience. He understands that doctor from a perspective of like, what is that procedure is going to take? Why do I need more time? Because some of these bigger companies, they're like, we'll give you 30 minutes to do a filling, but that doctor may not be able to do this filling in 30 minutes. Now I go in and explain all of that. They're not going to understand because don't understand the clinical side of it. But if you go to Dr. Hughes and say, hey, I need 45 minutes to do this filling, he's going to say, okay, I can understand and relate to that. And they're going to provide that additional time. But those people don't because they're looking at it from a business side of it. They're like, let's just get them in and get them out. So that's
Yeah.
all it is.
Masood, I believe that you hire people for a position that understand possibly that position even in greater detail than you do. So I imagine if you went to a developer and you don't know how to develop, they might listen. There's going to be a bias. They're going to be like, "What the hell is this guy talking about? Telling me how to be a developer? Like, you hired me to be a developer. Let me develop, right? I hired you, or we followed you because you're the visionary leader. You need to take us in a place and lead us." But a lot of CEOs, COOs, they get this wrong, right? They hire people and then they try to infiltrate their job and do their job for them. And so we should all stay in our lanes, right? Like one of my old mentors told me, hey, stick to what you're good at, right? Like invest in what you're good at. Don't go open up coffee shops and boutiques and all that bullshit. Like you're going to lose money. You don't know anything about that. You know about dentistry. So let the dentist do the dentistry, right? Let some of your business people run operations. Let your recruiters recruit, like all those things, and stay in your lane. That's where the level of respect comes in that you're talking about. When you're hiring professionals for that, you respect each person at their role. But for somebody to listen, if a dental assistant came to me and said, you really should do this in M&A, I'm always very humble to say, hey, listen, I'm open to that. But I might turn around and go, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. God bless them. But yeah, okay. So yeah, it has something to do with what specialty, because we can be good at a lot of things, but we can only be great at maybe one or two things.
No, that actually makes a lot of sense, and especially the fact that, like Dr. Milad said, like the DSOs want you to go in and do a filling in like 30 minutes. We pretty much had the same experience that like Dr. Milad went to our team of developers and that he was like, I want this feature developed in the next 30 minutes. And then they came to me and they were like, dude, this is going to take like at least a week to be developed.
Yeah. What the hell do you know,
We
Dr.
had the
Millar?
same
What the hell do you
experience
know?
in our line of work.
You gotta stick to your dentistry. Get out of here.
Yeah, I know. I go to the developers. I'm like, come on, man, you got to put this button right here. And the guy is like, dude, this takes like a week. I'm like, what? All right, bro, give it to me. I give it to ChatGPT. They'll make it in 5 minutes.
No, no.
So that's why, like me and Masood at the beginning, we were butting head all the time. I'm like, Masood, hurry up. What are you doing? And he used to
See?
say, Doc, this is not how it works. This is not how this works. I'm like, okay. Now I'm like, I calm down. I'm like, let them do their stuff. I'll just, cut the check, let them do the work.
That's where that humility comes in. Good on you.
Yep. I just sit back and just let them do what they do. So that's kind of
Yeah.
what it is. The one thing that, Craig, you mentioned is you talk about mentor. I want to know something about who have been some of your most influential mentor and how do they impact your approach to the work that you're doing right now? Because we talked about mentorships. I just wanted to kind of ask you on that.
I've had a lot of great mentors, and any young person who asks me that, how can I get to a position where you're at? What are you doing? I say, listen, you've got to get a mentor. You got to get a coach. You've got to continuously be growing. And so I've always felt that that's important. And Melissa Smith spoke on this just recently on her LinkedIn post. So yeah, always have a coach. And so I'll give you one example and a good story instead of one kind of business related. So one of my old mentors, I call him Crazy Larry. Now he had a lot of crazy stories. They called him Crazy Larry for a reason. But I go to Crazy Larry. I'm a young guy. We're living downtown. He and I are living in a penthouse in downtown Dallas, living the life, doing the thing. And I said, there's something that I want to do. I want to maybe cut back on this in my life so that I can save up a little money to do this. And he looked at me dead in the eye and he goes, just make more fucking money. And I was like, wait a minute. He's like, why are you trying to like stop whatever you're doing over here in your life, your quality of life, you're going to stop just so that you can save money to do this thing? Just go make more money. What the hell are you doing? And literally, that was one of those aha moments where God was like, bam, like, oh my goodness, I've been thinking about this all wrong. I've been thinking, oh, I have to like be scarcity and all. And he's like, dude, life of abundance, go get it. And so shout out to Crazy Larry. Rest in peace. He's fast now, but Crazy Larry was a fantastic mentor in my life, an older gentleman we were doing business at the time in some sales training. He was the best. So
I love it. Well, Craig, I'm so grateful that you came on. Like you mentioned earlier, time is the greatest asset that we have as humans. So I am so grateful for you to give us this hour of your time. Come talk with us, chat with us. I know that you guys gonna do amazing thing at Vision Dental Partners. Well, now you made a mistake. You gave me your phone number, so now I'm gonna keep bugging you. They
text me
said don't.
anytime.
They said don't give your number to Dr. Owji because I'm gonna keep bugging you.
Man, I feel like we can keep chopping it up for another hour. This has
I
been
know.
this has
I
been
appreciate you,
fantastic.
man. I know. Well, Craig, I really truly appreciate you hopping on. Like you mentioned, the door for us to talk more is always open. I want you to come back, update us on what you guys doing at Vision Dental Partner. For anyone that want to find you, what's the best place that they can reach out to you?
LinkedIn is where I live. So yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn, and of course, follow Vision Dental Partners. We are looking for like-minded dentist professionals that want to partner and not have to go into the machine, be part of the provider decisions and autonomous future and cash flow. Cash flow is where it's at.
I love that. Well, Craig, I know that Vision Dental Partners will go to the moon. I said that. I said that all the times, Dr. Hughes, on my comment. Vision Dental Partners to the moon. I'm sure that we're gonna see you guys on the biggest stage. I know that what you guys doing over there is a very meaningful thing. You guys gonna have a lot of impact in the industry. I'm all for it. I'm here to support it. Anything we can do, help along the way, let us know. I appreciate your time, buddy.
Thank you both.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so
Bye bye.
much, Craig. Very nice to meet you.